Okay, hi, good afternoon. My name is Roderick Lansing. I'm a program analyst at the American Indian Student Services at the University of New Mexico. We're one of the resource centers here at the university. We're in the Mesa Vista Hall. We're with the other ethnic centers. Our partners are El Centro de la Raza and African American Student Services. So just a little bit about American Indian Student Services. Our mission is to provide concentrated support services and the opportunities to recruit and retain American Indian students in order to ensure their academic achievement and to assist in their educational, personal, professional, cultural, and social success. Apologize, just bear with me. And okay. Some of the services we do provide, we do copy and fax services. We have a computer lab where students can utilize. One of our main that's probably one of our main utilized services because we offer free printing. Now day and age, everything costs, but we still hold on to our free printing for our students. We have tutoring and student study area, social cultural programming, volunteer and service in learning projects, student success leadership experience for students that are seeking student employment. We try to hire at least 2 or 3 every academic year. Recruitment and community outreach. We work closely with the chartered Native student organizations here on campus. We try to put together a comprehensive student scholarship database that I'll show you how we distribute the information. Then we have advisement, academic and financial aid advisement. Some of our students just connect better with our advisors here at our center. We try to make our center a home away from home for our students, someplace where they can feel safe and just hang out. And a lot of times that's what they usually do. So when we talk about financial aid, that's just, it's a lot, right? So what we try to do is we try to educate our students and their parents about, try to developing a plan of attack to fund their education, right? Yes, a lot of it determines on the students' performance in this classrooms, but there's other factors that come into play, and we try to cover them step by step and show them what they mean to kind of educate them about what the processes are and how to maintain it and continue your education. So the first one, I'll be talking about the cost of attendance. We kind of break this down to our students, kind of give them like a specific goal in mind to how much they're going to be paying. And a lot of it is their investment, right? They're investing their time, their work, and actually their time away from their community, their tribal doings, and their families. So it does come with a cost. So we like to break down the cost of attendance. We talk about the FAFSA. A lot of first-year students don't. A lot of our students are first-generation students, so they don't really have anyone to guide them for the FAFSA. Then we tell them how to determine their financial aid. Then we look at the different options for financial aid. And then lastly, we kind of show them kind of different resources they can use to help fund their education. Cost of attendance, we kind of break this down. So I'm using 2023, 2024 estimated numbers. So we break it down, through the direct costs and indirect costs, New Mexico residents and non-residents. So we always remind our tribal students that if you are a member of one of the 24 different tribal nations in New Mexico, and you're out of state, you can actually come and pay in-state tuition, as long as they're an enrolled member, right? So when we talk about direct costs, tuition fees, room and board, and additional student fees, right? I think a lot of times room and board are what is the biggest cost about for their educational journey. Then we have indirect costs. We kind of break that down to them. We want to give it to them so they know that at some point they may have to accrue some of these costs, but hopefully they don't have to. So we kind of give them a broad picture of what it looks like. I know the numbers can be daunting, but then we try to develop a plan to help them kind of knock it out. This year was a little different because we had the opportunity scholarship. So that kind of knocked out a bigger piece and kind of like brought a lot more relief to the parents because, because it cut down it took part of a big significant of their expected fees. But we don't know what it's going to look like next year, right? Because we don't know whether or not it's coming back or how it's going to change. And then on top of that, with our students, we do have a potential direct cost, which we definitely let the students know about. It's going to be housing. If they do plan to live on campus, study shows that students have a more positive experience living on campus academically. So UNM does have a freshman residency requirement, for students that are full-time, under the age of 20, and live outside the 30-mile radius from UNM main campus. They are required to live on campus. But that's not. We always tell our students you can always opt out of it. Just submit some paperwork, and you can commute every day if you like. But the main thing is that if you do decide to do this, live on campus, and you're required to have a meal plan. A meal plan does cost. So depending on the meal plan you choose and the housing that you select, your cost, there is going to be additional cost, but it all varies on the type of whatever the student decides to choose. So that's kind of like what we put together for our students. We sit down, we're like, hey, look, this is what it's going to look like. Now let's go see how we start the process as far as funding your education. So that turns us to the FAFSA. FAFSA, as you all know, kind of is the kind of like the ball that kind of starts everything, right? So we always sit down, the free application for federal student aid, with the application for grants, work study, and loans. It's available October 1st. So right now we are in the 2023-2024 academic year. We tell our students, we show them where to go, studentaid.gov, and that they would have to create an FSAID account. They would need their both parent and students' federal tax returns and W-2s. The FSAIDs, as you all know, we always tell students that they identify who you are and access your electronic signature. So for UNM, the UNM has a priority date of January 5th, 2023. We always tell our students that your goal is to submit it before then. The reason being is because of the additional state funds that you potentially could qualify for if you qualify for a Pell Grant. It could increase your award amount, but the only thing is that you got to get it in before January 5th before all these funds are depleted. We have a deadline of February 1st for that, for those required documents. And then we have our school code here. And I'm actually talking. So Martha, if a question comes up, just go ahead and if you could read it out to me, just because I have my whole screen going.
Sure. We did have a question that was, talking about the recent light of events and affordable and almost non-existent housing in, the Albuquerque area and other areas. Does UNM try to work with the award amounts of financial aid or work study? Are there ways that they're considering housing costs for students at all, or even their own cost of housing?
Sure, that's a good question. Whoever asked, I will definitely find the answer for you. Right now, all I know is that we have a wide amount, right? We have a couple of third-party companies that have other housings off of campus. However, they vary from the very basic, which is probably the lowest amount, to something more with all the convenience, the cost can definitely vary. But I'm sorry, right now I don't really have an answer for that, but I can find out and send you that information. Okay. And when filling out the FAFSA, I know I'm just coming from our perspective. We've been doing a workshop for the last 10 years. We service everybody on campus. So some of these scenarios and experiences are based off of that, our interactions with our students during that time. So hopefully some of them, if you are looking for questions or scenarios, hopefully this will help. Our big thing is just the first thing is that, determining dependency and independent status. Our students always come in thinking that, hey, I moved out of my mom's house, my dad's house. I am independent, right? But that's not the case. We always have to remind them that FAFSA has certain criteria to determine what you are, so if you're 24 years of age, if you're married, if you're working on your graduate degree, if you have children, dependents, if you're, part of the armed forces, if you're all of that, then you are independent. However, if you're not, you're dependent and you would need your parents' tax returns. One of the things that I know students are always happy about is that when they find out that they are independent. For example, I just helped 2 students last week going into graduate school that, most of the time students delay their FAFSA because of the fact that they're waiting for their parents' FSAID or their tax returns. And sometimes, with every day everyone's working and everyone's busy schedules, that it does take time to get that information. But they found out that they were independent because they're going to grad school, and it made the process so much easier. But there's other scenarios, we take it case by case, and depending on what the circumstances are, that student can actually be, under 24 and not married, not having independent, where they can fall into independent status. And I think it may vary across the board at each institution, but I'll kind of tell you what we do here at UNM. Some of the scenarios that come through FAFSA, I do come up with little tips that I try to share with our student and their parent. I always invite parents to our sessions. That way they can start learning about the process and what it entails, and they actually, what kind of role they play as far as getting the ball started for their student. So I always tell students to always add the mobile number to your FSC ID profile, because that's the easiest way to reset your password. You have that social security question. You might know the answers to all of them, but when you get there and answered all of it, you're locked out for 30 minutes. And sometimes, I don't know what it is, but students just feel like time is very valuable to them. They don't have time to wait for 30 minutes, and they'll say, well, I'll come back. And we don't see them for another month. And then sometimes we don't even see them until after the priority date has passed, right? Then we have situations where parents have no social security numbers. So we always, if the student has a social security number, we always direct them to the FAFSA. We help them out by just adding zeros to their parents and letting them sign, print out the FAFSA, and then sign it and submit it to your institution's financial aid office. Then when I'm working with two-year college students coming from maybe CNM or SIPI, I always advise students to start using your personal email account, because one of the things that always happens is students forget to change that information when on their last year, but then when they stop going to that school and start going to a different four-year institution, their account becomes inactive and they can no longer access it, and then they have to call the hotline to reset it. So at that second year and the graduating year, I always tell them to switch to their personal email address so that they can continue that and not have to call the hotline to reset their password. And I always tell our students, always answer yes to work study, which I'm pretty sure you all do. Work study for UNM is the first thing that's awarded. A lot of students say, like, my parents make too much, right? But I'm like, you can qualify for no-need work study. And a lot of times when you're looking for a job, a lot of our departments here on campus are going to, they want work study eligible students so that they can get their money from a different source. So I always tell them to answer yes. And even if they don't know, like, just answer yes, because it's easier to decline it, accept it, get it, and decline it than vice versa, because that never usually happens. If a person answers no, more than likely they will not get it. I always tell students you need your W-2s, both W-2s for dual income household. When you do the data retrieval tool, pull it in from the IRS. That's one thing that the program will not differentiate. So you need to know which is which parent one or parent two makes. And lastly, I always let students know that they need to follow up with their financial aid. Once they press submit, a lot of our students think they're done. But a lot of the things, since our tribal students are getting funded by their tribe, a lot of times the tribes require the FAFSA, and they need a financial needs analysis. And our institution will not send out a financial needs analysis unless their file is complete. So what we usually do is I get a list of everybody who submitted their FAFSA, and I get their email addresses. And then at the end of the program, probably, and when we come back from winter break, I email them and just say, make sure you had the February 1st deadline to get your supporting documents in. So I always make sure we try to follow up with them, but they need to take it on themselves and take the initiative and follow up as well. And then for our undocumented and DACA students, we are very fortunate to have the El Centro de la Raza right next to us to add additional support. But through SB 582, mostly all New Mexico institutions should have a state aid form, which UNM does. We have a state aid form that's on our website, our financial aid website, that students fill out. A lot of the information is kind of the same information that they would give to input in FAFSA, but it's a lot more simpler. And what they do is they fill it out, and actually when they print it out, they can take it over to the we call it one stop, where all the paperwork goes to the financial aid office. And that's the process for our students here at UNM. But if the student is a citizen and the parents are undocumented, they can still fill out the online FAFSA. Parents don't have to create an FSC ID. We put zeros in for their social security numbers. If they're living abroad, we would ask them to estimate their annual income. And then at the end of the process, instead of submitting it, we would print out the documents, have both parent and student sign it, and then submit it to our financial aid office. So it doesn't get mailed off to FAFSA. It goes straight to our financial aid office. Some of the questions that you all brought up about undocumented students and the Opportunity Scholarship. We have great partners here, like I said, at El Centro de la Raza. The email address is here and the phone number is there. So I'm pretty sure that if you give them a call, I know they'll have a lot better answers than they would have answers that I don't have. So then we have, when I'm working with students, we have all these different reasons why they can't complete the FAFSA. Parent FSA ID and password is probably the main one. We always tell students before they come here, this is what you need to bring. So please, if you can, it makes it a lot more simpler. The data retrieval tool doesn't transfer sometimes. They won't transfer parents' income tax. And a lot of it is for our tribal students, they use a third party to kind of fill out to get their taxes done. So when they do that, they don't really necessarily use the physical address from their parents, where their parents live. They use that company's physical address. So what I tell students is if you can just take a snapshot of the address part of the tax return, so that way we can match it up in the data retrieval tool. And that's a lot of times that's what it is. They just have the wrong address in there. And sometimes, when I was a student, I was moving place to place every year, different apartments. You just have to remember your old address, and something that usually works. For students with PO boxes, since students live in rural areas, they use a lot of PO boxes. So there's a new text box that it's not new, but FAFSA kind of like just added it, so you can just put the box number. That way you can connect to the right information, match up the data, and then transfer over the information from the IRS. So that's, I know on our side, that's kind of like a lot of the experience we have with when students can't transfer their information from the IRS. And the other one is lacking one parent income. And we say, always remind students to bring both your W-2s, because when you transfer the data from the IRS, you can't see the wage amount, the total wage amount. So if you have one, you can't really find out the difference. So having both of them is crucial for you to finish up complete and file the FAFSA. And then we also have situations where students have no relationship with parents. They're living with either their aunt or uncle, their grandparents. So in this case, we can still file the FAFSA. I always tell students at that question when it talks about when they're trying to find their independent and dependent status, there's that question about an unaccompanied youth. They would select yes. And then when they answer that, when they move on to the next section, they would just bypass the parent income section, and it goes directly to the student income section. So at the end, they're going to get verified. And then what I do is I follow up, because our financial aid department has a petition where they can fill out and explain their living situation. And more than likely, I always tell the student that you're going to have to find a non-relative teacher, guidance counselor, boss that kind of can attest to your living situation. And that just adds, that can be supporting documents for you to be eligible for financial aid if you do qualify. The other times is the email doesn't exist anymore, or they can't remember. In this case, we can remember our Netflix, our Hulu, everything, but they always forget their FAFSA. I have no idea why, but they always do. And that's why I always tell them to add your mobile number to your FSA ID profile, because it's the easiest way. So you can get back into your account. If you could just bear with me, I'm sorry, I have my son coming into my office. Just be right back.
No worries. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and say in this interim that if we have any new folks to the ECHO, or you have not yet filled out the pre-participant survey, we really appreciate folks being able to share some information about why they're joining our session, as well as then I also have a post survey for this session. So it just kind of helps give us some information about if you have things you'd like to let us know, what was positive, what might need some work. So feel free to fill those out. They're both in the chat. All right, and you can continue, Rod. Thanks.
Okay, sorry about that, apologize. But yeah, so that's kind of like our experience with the FAFSA and working with students. I don't know if you have the same situations, but I hope that some of these were able to answer some of your questions that you might have. We do have our workshop. It's called Faster for You. These are the remaining dates for the semester. We are using the 2021 federal tax returns and W-2s for the 2023, 2024. It's open to all students. And if you have a group of students, we do, for example, tomorrow I'm going to Manzano High School to present to all the students there. And it's, we have FAFSA experts to come with me to be able to sit down and fill out the FAFSA together. So if you ever need us to come over, definitely let us know. We'd be happy to do that with you.
Roderick, I have a quick question. You were talking a bit ago about whether students were dependent or independent. It seems that, a lot of times I talk to students who are under 24, so they're dependent, and then their parents make too much money, so they can't get any financial aid, when it seems that the totals on too much are really low. It really seems like it's real common that you have a student that might have a couple other siblings that are in college, or you're talking an income that is not, resulting in parents having vast amounts of money to throw away toward college, or if they're first generation students and their parents just don't think of throwing $20,000 towards school. What do students do when they're in that situation? They're like, they can't get any financial aid because their parents make too much money and their parents' money is not actually available to them. Do we just like abandon them to like, your parents don't want to pay your bills, so you're stuck? I mean, it seems totally unfair to a first generation student to have to meet that criteria.
Yeah, and there's a fine line, and I always feel like I think all of us feel like the algorithms that FAFSA has is just not really realistic, right? There's other scholarships out there, and I always tell students to apply. And I have my prime example is my nephew. He came in, parents made too much, he didn't qualify for nothing, but we still submitted all his information to all his tribe, to other third-party private donors. And, in that scenario, it was so funny because that first semester, he ended up getting funded, even though he wasn't qualified for anything. And what we do is we tell students to start building a financial aid folder, a portfolio, so that way they have everything within reach, because you can put everything to the cloud, because you have so many last minute donors that are trying to give money to students. The thing is, a lot of times students don't even apply. And what they're going to do is they're going to go to the next wave for students that have no money. They're going to go ahead and fund them. I mean, no need. They're going to go ahead and fund them. So it's just, it's really, I know it's hard, but that's kind of like my answer for that. But I know there's all these different situations, but you can always reach into emergency funds and whatnot. But it just really depends on the situation and what the students is and their academic performance and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I'm hoping that kind of helps you, James. I don't know, sure.
Yeah, well, it just seems that, a lot of times the numbers that they have set for, somebody makes 75K, then they need to put their kids through college. Well, there's lots of people who make that much and don't consider themselves, flush. They have all kinds of other expenses and they just don't have money to put their kids through school. And it's this kind of logic that is somehow like making the entire, the student isn't able to actually have their own wish to get their college degree until they're 24. Until that point, their wish for a college degree is all dependent on whether their parents want them to get a college degree rather than whether the student does, So, I mean, the drive for the student to get it is one that should matter, but it seems that under 24, they're not allowed to actually have their own goals and aspirations, that somehow their goals have to be subsidiary to their parents. And I just find that it's just a strange logic, right? We're stuck in it in the United States, but it's just a funny logic. So
no, it is. I agree. And to even make it even more daunting is with the inflation we're experiencing right now. Like our money a dollar doesn't go as long as it did last year. So, it makes it even harder for students that just get above that EFC. I think what is it, like 5,600 is the EFC cutoff to get Pell Grant, to qualify for Pell Grant. But or I'm just guesstimating, but They come in at 6,000, they just missed a cuss, right? But you know, we still point them out to these different resources, and they do apply, and sometimes they do get it. But the main thing is I tell students to stay vigilant, to research. We do a lot of the research for them. I'll show you how we do that. And the other one is just put in an application, because some of these applications are so easy. It only takes maybe 30 minutes if you have your whole documents together. And you know, sometimes they get funded, sometimes they don't, but at least you put yourself in the running for it.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely reach out to us if you do need us to help you with FAFSA. We'd be happy to do that. Determining financial aid, we kind of had to break it down to the students and their family of how they determine financial aid. You know, I went over the cost of attendance, and just like James was just talking about the EFC, right? The expected family contribution, where, you know, like the EFC comes back and that's what your family is expected to contribute to your education. But most of the time it's not the case, because, you know, we have all these other costs associated, that just the cost of living. But we do let the students know how their, you know, financial need, their financial need is calculated, and they see the maximum amount of need-based scholarship that they're eligible for. And then after that, we start talking about financial aid and what it looks like, right? The type of aid that's available. We talk about grants, free money that you don't have to apply. This is why we do the FAFSA, and hope they do qualify. But beyond that, we talk about loans too. We do have to educate them about loans, and you know, like what it means for them. But we always tell them that's the last resort. You know, I would rather you get awarded non-need work study and earn your money than have to get a loan, right? So we do talk about work study and the importance of just making sure that you answer yes to that as well. And then we talk about scholarships. You know, so at our department, I'm very fortunate to have some very ambitious student staff. So what we do is I have a scholarship team that we just look out and research scholarships. We put them on all of our website for all students to access. We had 3 different pages. We have the UNM page, which is UNM scholarships that are for UNM, specifically for UNM students. And the main thing I'm finding out is that with our students, they never apply for their college for their college scholarships. So a student in fine arts can't find like in a music program, can't find a scholarship specifically for that program. But I'm like, you know, you have the college fine arts, they fund everybody in that program. So what we do is we always find a deadline. When it's updated, we put it on our website so that we have access, and then we disseminate the information through email blasts, our social media. Everybody who comes into our office, we have them register with our office. We put them on our weekly announcements. Then we have private donors, the third party that are funding students. On there, we have mostly all the common, most popular and awarded Native scholarships on there. Then we go in and research other ways. A scholarship that, you know, you can as long as you have a perfect driving record, you can get a scholarship. If you make a video, upload it to the company site, you get a scholarship. What we do is we categorize it, we organize it by the month. So January through December. We like to call February to May scholarship season. There's so many scholarships out there. I mean, those are the months that our pages get up to 60. We can identify easily 60 opportunities for students to apply for. But then after May, it really kind of takes a hit. And then for our first year students, our high school students, a lot of times they don't even look for scholarships until they graduate, right? So we always tell them to make sure that you look at our webpage and use that as a resource. Then lastly is the tribal listing. We do list all the tribal higher education departments for the 24 different tribal nations in New Mexico. If you have any students that want to get a hold of their offices, you can always go to our website and go to that link and find a number to call, okay? Or email address to email. These are different resources where we find them. So we sit there, our student staff and myself, we go ahead and if there's something that comes on the radar, we see on social media, we definitely call and we look at the information, because we're trying to make sure that we kind of vet the information before we put it on our website. But, you know, we always do let the students know who visit our page that, hey, you know, we don't control these third-party ones, but these are opportunities. And a lot of times, most of the applications are online. So we'll provide the date. We actually organize each month by the deadline of a scholarship. So it's in chronological order by deadlines. So whenever you go to visit a page, a scholarship, you'll see the information, what's it about. You can read, then you'll have a link that leads you directly to that, where you can access more information about it. And if it does apply to you, definitely we encourage you to apply. Then lastly, we just talked about a different freshman New Mexico residential scholarships for UNM. A lot of our students, high school students, do qualify, but they just don't know. Like a lot of our deadlines is this semester. So I don't know if seniors don't look for scholarships until their spring semester. But we do have our top ones are always the Regents and Presidential. There are academic base, but you have to meet certain criteria as far as applying and being accepted to UNM by December 1st. The other one is the legislative scholarship. We always tell them that you do have a qualifying semester. As long as you're a high school graduate, you definitely can put yourself into running for this scholarship as well. You'll get it, but you do have to have a qualifying semester. Then we have the other ones, the Woodward, the Scholars, and the Achievers, all academic base. And a lot of times these students will automatically be considered for it as long as they maintain their academic performance and then apply to UNM by December 1st. So we try to push that because a lot of times students are, they may not know where they're going to till the spring. But if you get all that stuff, you definitely be awarded already. And then we talk about the qualifying semester, Bridge to Success and Success Grant. Some of them have, depending on the amount, will be on your performance, as well as if you get if you apply to UNM by a certain date and if you file the FAFSA. And that's kind of like what UNM's financial aid kind of looks like for our students that plan to attend UNM. We kind of go over this to kind of give them a, just kind of have them look at the big picture basically. And then after that, we kind of break it down for them. One of the things that we do have is called the American Indian Summer Bridge, which is the bridge program from high school students to students that are going to be first year students at UNM. In our class, we do have funding to give out scholarships for that student. And what we do is we actually have mandatory study hall. They have to hit a certain amount, like I think it was 3 hours each week. Not too much, but they actually spend longer times in our office, and in order to qualify for a scholarship. And that scholarship is it's like a $1,200 scholarship, which is awarded at the end of the semester. So some of the students that were not qualified for financial aid, they fell in this area, and a lot of them are some of these students are signed up, and then they'll be able to earn the scholarship at the end of the semester. And the class, it's a fall experience because we were in between that whole pandemic, uncertainty. So next year we're actually going to turn it into a summer bridge, back to the summer bridge, where we have it'll be a residential program where students live on campus. So that's for this year. We're doing it in the classrooms right now. We are on social media: Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter, where our handle is @aiss.unm, and you can always go to our website and use that as a resource. Our scholarship pages, I'm the webmaster for our department, and our scholarship pages by far has the most hits on our website. So definitely use this as a resource, and definitely connect with us. You can see some of the information that's coming out for our students. But yeah, that's my presentation right there. So hopefully, if y'all have any questions, I'd love to try to answer them if I can.